Welcome to part 2 of our tier list.
Before we begin, there is something I want to address. Under our first episode, there was this comment talking about the IS-2. After a deep look into it, we decided to bump the IS-2 into the C tier.
Now let's continue where we left off, starting with the Stug 3G.
This is the first tank you can access, as Wehrmacht doesn't have a light tank of any kind. It has a decent firepower and cost for the medium Panzer, with a skill and upgrades that make it more useful.
The MG42 upgrade is good against infantry that wants to get closer. However, it won't do much on its own. Target weak point is a good skill for what it does. A guaranteed hit that stuns an enemy tank. Only needs some munitions in Veteran C1. At Veteran C2, it gets side screens, improving its armor. In my opinion, a good support tank which should be in B tier.
You make a good point, Joe. A B tier is a good spot, as it cannot handle infantry well, even with the MG.
To B it shall go.
Next is the anti-aircraft tank, aka the Flak Panzer IV Ostwind.
Ostwind is a tank you want if there is a horde of infantry attacking your positions. With its quick-firing 37-centimeter gun, it can shred soft targets like none other. Plus, it is one of the few units to engage enemy planes from skills.
It also gets access to one of my favorite abilities in the game, Blitzkrieg, which increases the movement speed and makes it harder to hit. However, even with those bonuses, it is not a good tank to engage other medium tanks, so I'd place it in the B tier with the Stug.
I was thinking of the C tier, but B sounds reasonable enough.
With that out of the way, let's focus on the workhorse, the one and only Panzer IV. It has the same role as Soviet T-34, but in my opinion, does it slightly better. It might cost more than its Soviet counterpart, but does not let you down in a long run. Long 75 MG upgrade, Blitzkrieg ability at Veteran C1, side screens at Veteran C2. In my opinion, this is a perfect German tank that if you get a couple of them, they can cause insane amount of destruction if well coordinated. My spot for it is the A tier above the T-34-76.
Well, Joe, I have to say you managed to impress me. I'll put it on the A tier just because you proved valid points of this Panzer.
A bit early to talk about commander-restricted tanks, but what do you say about Panzer IVJ, Joe?
It's a mixed bag, to be honest. You get the starting armor upgrade, which you would get at Veteran C2 for regular Panzer. It costs a bit more, slightly slower, and is available only for 2 commanders, which are Strategic Reserves Doctrine and Festung Armor Doctrine, while normal Panzer IVH is available all the time after researching Phase 2. I'll put it in the B tier because of that.
Let's change the topic and talk about a demolition expert, aka the Sturmpanzer IV Brummbär.
It's not really a tank, but more of an assault gun, which turns infantry and team weapons into pile of mush, while leaves fortifications completely shattered. It's like a German KV-2 without a turret and available at all times after reaching Phase 3. Plus the MG upgrade and Blitzkrieg as a bonus. The biggest flaw is weak anti-tank capabilities. Solid C tier at best.
Whatever you say, Joe, I don't use it much anyway, so I have no word on it. What I have few words on is about the Panther. Panther is a so-called heavy tank by many while still being in a role of a medium. Its main gun can be compared to some from tank destroyers, while having a strong armor at the same time. It is costly to make like all late-game armor, but it pays off later on.
Giving it the same MG upgrade like the previous tanks, getting the Blitzkrieg ability and armor improvement as it gets more veterancy, makes it a very deadly predator. Plus, it is more useful as a heavy tank for commanders that do not have any special tanks of their own. I am talking about Close Air Support Doctrine, which has only aircraft-related abilities. One of the best, in my opinion, which should be placed in the S tier.
Solid spot, Obama. I agree it is an S tier tank.
Don, put the Panther in the S tier kindly.
We'll do it gladly, Joe. But now we come to one of mine and many people's favorite tank in the whole game. And who it is shouldn't surprise any of you.
The almighty Tiger time.
Let me cook this time, Joe.
Sure thing, Don. Go ahead.
Thanks, Joe. The Tiger 1 is without any question in the top 5 heavy tanks of Company of Heroes 2, being unlocked for 11 command points, and after researching Phase 3, it is a beast of a tank, even in hands of a mediocre player. Available for 4 different commanders, which are Spearhead Doctrine, Assault Support Doctrine, Lightning War Doctrine, and Mechanized Assault Doctrine. High durability, good armor, deadly and accurate gun, plus a decent mobility are just a starting package of this fantastic tank. Let's not forget that it also has that MG upgrade and Blitzkrieg ability on Veterancy 1. And with further Veterancy, its accuracy, reload, view, range, turret rotation, acceleration, and overall plus max speed gets increased. And as a small bonus, it gets a mission dedicated to just itself in theater of war scenario. This is a certified S tier.
While we are on the Tigers, what do we say about the Ace version?
I say it is a slight downgrade. While it starts on Veterancy 1, has access to independent repairing for munitions, and gets an ability on Veterancy 2 that increases its view range. But that ability locks the turret to rotate in only 90-degree angle. Plus, it has more cost than regular Tiger in terms of resources and command points requirement.
Let's not forget that it used to decrease your manpower gain by a lot more and completely stop your fuel gain, but thankfully, that was removed.
I see your points, gentlemen, and after calculations, I am putting Tiger Ace on top of A tier instead of S.
A tier is a good spot for it, but sadly it won't be for our next tank, the Elephant. It's a very long-range heavy tank destroyer, which has some issues. Its costly price of 720 manpower and 245 fuel makes it the second most expensive tank for Wehrmacht. It's the slowest tank for them too, making it not a reliable unit for fast combat. However, it has a very big range of fire, and it hits like a fully loaded truck. When it reaches Veterancy 1, it gets the same weak point shot as the Stug 3G. It is beefy as it has a prototype Tiger hull, but it rotates slower than old grandfather clock. However, I do like this Elephant personally, so can we agree on B tier?
I don't see why not, Joe.
You two agree with those Germans quite often, don't you?
If I remember, Wehrmacht is Joe's most played faction.
You're not wrong, Barry.
Anyways, next we have a rather mixed tank, which is a commander version of a Panzer IV.
Cost of it is rather decent, being 360 manpower and 100 fuel, but it shows cheap cost to its weapon, which is a short-barreled 75.
That gun is decent against infantry, but almost useless against medium tanks.
However, it has 3 support abilities, 2 active and 1 passive. Active abilities are a smoke shell, which creates a smoke screen to disrupt enemy vision, and coordinated fire at Veterancy 1, which targets enemy tanks and makes it take more damage for some time. The passive ability is a damage reduction aura, which, as the name says, reduces the incoming damage to units around the command tank.
Not really that much useful as it sounds, because the damage reduction is rather small, around 10%. So I'd place it in the C tier because it is a support tank.
Let me put it there so we can move to the last tank, which is Stug 3E. Another support tank, this time being a light assault gun with a small howitzer. It pays off against clusters of infantry with its high explosive shots and the MG upgrade. I'd say maybe 2 or 3 together could do some damage, but I never used it, so I'll let Joe decide where to put it.
It's not the best, so I think C tier behind the commander would do. And so we finished the 2 base game factions tank units.
Now we will go over the DLC factions, starting with my favorite, USF, aka United States Forces.